What's up, Meta Nerds? This video is all about the MSE-6 series repair droid, or as it's more commonly referred to, the Mouse Droid. Believe it or not, this thing has a pretty interesting backstory, and it was crucial to the operations of both the Empire and later the First Order, not to mention its widespread use throughout many criminal syndicates. I know that now, 40 plus years after Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, it's easy to forget this storage bin on wheels, but we should always remember that even though the Star Wars galaxy is now populated with all kinds of fantastic droids, it was these originals that sucked us into the film. It was little things like the mouse droid in the background, which helped to tell your brain that this was a real living world, where every square inch of the screen felt like it was filled with something that belonged there, something that made sense for its environment. And although the mouse droid isn't flashy by any standard, from a certain point of view, you could say that it helped to build the lore tradition around Star Wars, as people tried to figure out the purpose of all those little droids in the background. But enough with my love letter, let's jump into its history. It was manufactured by Roboxen Columni, a company that made droids for small business use or for just helping out around the house. For this purpose, it had a relatively small size of 0.25 meters or about 10 inches tall. Now what's really interesting about their design is that they're programmed to handle a ton of different tasks, including communication, security, repairs, or just basic cleanup. The only catch is that it could only perform one of these tasks at a time. But no worries, it looks like Tupperware for a reason, and you could easily remove that top lid and swap out the base for different program matrices, which allowed it to carry out whatever task you wanted. Hopefully, the company that makes Roombas will steal this idea one day. Now, it might not be a surprise that the company that makes the mouse droids comes from this species, the Chadrafan. This species kind of looks like a bat and mouse hybrid, and they were only about 1 meter or about 40 inches tall. Now, the mouse droid's history starts when some Chandrafan businessmen came together and decided to go all in on their new droid. They produced billions of the MSE-6 droid, and their marketing campaign was spread over 400 sectors, where their advertisements pitched them as being cute, making the perfect both practical and adorable household droid. This marketing campaign was very successful, and a ton of mouse droids found their way into people's homes. After their new owners started to live with this droid for some time, it started to kind of freak them out. Though it looked cute in advertisements, when their owners put it into use, the way that it scurried around on the floor reminded them of disgusting, disease-carrying little creatures. And instead of providing some help around the house, they made their homeowners and guests feel uncomfortable, and almost like they had an infestation of vermin. And for other species which weren't necessarily freaked out by the thing, were still really annoyed by it. One time, the entire Ara species returned every single mouse droid purchased on the planet. The Ara were humanoid reptilians who ate little scurrying creatures, and so every time the mouse droid was helping clean up their home, it just made them really hungry. And so the Chandrafan found themselves sitting on a flop, billions of droids that they had no use for, that nobody would buy. And as the executives were meeting to figure out what to do with all these things, the bat-mice-looking board of directors turned on the news and saw that the Jedi Order, which had been standing for thousands of years, were actually a bunch of traitors, and their new benefactor was a human that resembled a raisin. And despite the Clone Wars being over, this new empire was building a ton of new things. They were building bases and other administrative buildings, but also Star Destroyers, Super Star Destroyers, and a giant secret project that later became the Death Star. The quick-thinking Chadrafan realized that this new empire would appreciate a cheap droid that, at the very least, could be used to clean all the floors. They sold them very cheaply to the new Galactic Empire, because at this point they weren't interested in making a profit, they just wanted to get the money back that they originally invested. And the Empire was equally happy with this new arrangement. Having just secured one of the best business deals of the new Empire, they put the modular design of this droid to great use. And they made sure that the mouse droid was used for a lot more than just cleaning floors. Some were arranged to provide secure communication channels, some were used to escort guests and even stormtroopers, who would often need help navigating the labyrinthian insides of a Super Star Destroyer or the Death Star. Many of them would often carry sealed orders on these two top racks. Though why this was a good idea instead of just using secure comm links is one of those mysteries of the Star Wars galaxy. But the Empire also came up with the creative idea of chaining together multiple mouse droids. This allowed them to do more complex tasks, or do multiple tasks at one time. Their last, but perhaps one of their coolest features, was a self-destruct mode. If they were ever captured, which was an especially big problem if they're carrying sealed orders, these things were designed to melt down. But to try and prevent this from happening, they programmed it with a rudimentary ability to understand threats, and we see this self-preservation ability demonstrated when Chewbacca scares one. After the Emperor's literal downfall, a lot of the ships from the old Empire were still being used, and eventually became part of the First Order, and thus their legacy survives 40 years later into the new films. So that's it for mouse droid lore, but before you go, I want to go over some cool facts and some behind the scenes stuff. Like I said, there were billions of MSE-6 series repair droids made, and so it wasn't like they were just used by those couple species I mentioned, or just by the Empire and the First Order. The easy to modify modular system of these droids made it a favorite for hackers and for use on spying on people. This obviously made them a favorite amongst criminal syndicates, but it was also used by the Confederacy of Independent Systems, and as you can see here, it's escorting some battle droids down a hallway, similar to how later versions would escort stormtroopers. And some were also used by the Republic. And it seems that the humanoids of our galaxy like this thing a little bit more than the Aura, because there have been a whole bunch of Mouse Droid toys made, and it even got its own skit in Robot Chicken. And perhaps the deepest love of all comes from the Mouse Droid Builders Club. This is a group of people that try and build the most accurate, or the most fun, versions of their very own mouse droids. Well, that's it for the Mouse Droid. If you liked it, go ahead and hit that like button, and be sure to leave a comment down below if I missed any cool facts, or if you have a suggestion for future videos. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at MetaNerdsLore, so you can see us build Star Wars props and cosplays, along with some other cool Star Wars stuff. If you want to help support this channel, check out the description below for our Amazon store and our Patreon. And be sure to subscribe, because we're making videos like this every single day. But most important of all, remember, respect the Mouse Droid, and may the Force be with you. Always.